Hello everybody, welcome back to Blueprints. It's been a while since we played, I think 2 or 3 days, can't remember. Um, but I watched my girlfriend play yesterday and I noticed the joke Blueprints, right? Blueprints. I didn't notice that one. I don't know why, it's such an obvious one too, that the name of the game already is like, uh, um, what do you call like a play on how it sounds. And yeah, let's go and start out here. Also, I did a bunch of fixing, quote unquote, with my audio, so I hope it works well. We'll see. No idea if it will or not, but I'll check in after the stream and watch the VOD and see if everything worked well. So I hope it does. Otherwise, I think we're ready to go. Just opening up my stream manager. And we should be good to go. Okay, yeah. So we have a video. Okay, everything seems to be working, hopefully. And also, yeah, like I said, I changed a bit about with the audio, so we don't hear the game sound too much bleeding through when I don't speak. I noticed with Clear Expedition 33, Clear Obscure, that there were like issues with the bass. So yeah, and I should have added in a high pass filter a long time ago. I don't know why I didn't. So yeah, now we should have less rumbling and hopefully less false activations. And otherwise, we now have mono sound to a mono mic to stereo, and we are not streaming in 5.1 audio anymore because it didn't work that well anyway. And I think almost no device took advantage of it. So yeah, some, I guess, edge cases on TVs could have had 5.1, but I would say like 95% plus of the viewers probably didn't have it anyway. So, I mean, probably 99, that's real. And yeah, and also in the browser, you can see it on YouTube. So there were many reasons why I would change that. So yeah, that's basically the idea. And also I got some ideas. One is the main menu. And another one is, while watching Janine, basically, I had a few things we quote unquote missed, maybe. Okay, this is nothing. Yeah, that is the first one. But then there also was another one because at the time I did not know how to. Sounds stupid if I say it like that. I did not know how to flip the pages when reading books. I didn't know there was a thing, so I didn't check it back then, and so I missed a piece of information we have available right now. Did you check here? Did it change this slightly? Yeah, this seems to be roughly fine. Okay, cool. So let's get going. Sorry for all the troubleshooting here. But that's the life of autism, I guess. I'm like very, very specific about settings and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely not normal, I think, but also helps at the end because I like, once it's set up usually. But it will lead to a bit more troubleshooting. What am I doing here? There is basically a hint in a room we're going to also look at on stream, which I missed because I didn't know how to flip pages, like I said. And I think it might have maybe something to do with this, but maybe I'm just like, my interpretation here might be slightly off or something. Because as you can see, we're not seeing anything, but I won't give up just yet because it was rather specific about it, but we're gonna read it once we are in the room again. So yeah, bear with me here. but I don't think that is how it works. I mean, they didn't specify exactly where, so that might be a reason why I believe it might not be relevant. Yeah, we definitely also should take the... okay, good to know. I forgot what items we had. We should always check. Also forgot to increment the date again. I'm an idiot. Let me quickly open up the gate. And also it says that there are multiple ways of... There are multiple ways to gain stars per day. I have an idea about that one too. Okay, what else did we have? Yeah, another idea I had, I should probably write that down here, maybe, I don't know. Okay, we should keep this one too. And... yeah, and that one is irrelevant. Okay, so now we have all the hints basically available. So far, no drop frames, everything's going well. Always like, you know, after troubleshooting, I guess, begins anew. Okay, very nice. Okay, is there anything here? I don't think so. We're looking for bushes, basically. Because in the bushes, there should be... there should be a plane, but I'm not sure if that is just like the way it was worded, or if there actually is a plane in the bushes. So, I think it's bushes, right? It's not bushes. Yeah, the bushes. So yeah, looking around a little bit here. Definitely want to come back with items though at a later point. Still looking for it though, because we never know. And the art is really pretty. Like the cell shading works really nicely. And even when you go close up to objects, yeah, you can see like how they're made, but they still look nice. Yeah, I really like the visuals here. Very simplistic, but effective. I mean, you can't say I didn't check them. Yeah, and this one we want to come back to if we have maybe some more information or something. Yeah, no idea where anything is. Yeah, I also hope I really have to check the audio later, that the levels are fine and that I'm not cut off or anything. But I would not expect so, because I didn't change anything. Check something again. All of that should be fine. So yeah, I really hope it works. Please let this work. I spent so much time troubleshooting this. Yeah, the basic problem was, first I noticed, right, there was like the bass from the games was activating my microphone, which I don't like. So I was like, okay, I gotta change that. But then also, in addition to that, what happened was basically I noticed the clicking sound only on the right channel, like the right speaker. And I was like, oh no, that sucks, right? Still don't know what that does, but I'm gonna do it every day. Oh yeah, okay, I forgot to increment the date again. I'm stupid. Okay, I think it should be 15. And make a wish every day. Okay, so yeah, that's what I noticed, and then there was like some crackling on the right speaker, and then I was like, okay, it's not that often, but it's often enough to happen every few seconds or so, but not periodically or anything, no consistency. And I was like, ah, shit, right, that sucks. And I was like, oh no. And yeah, then the troubleshooting began, and I have a very good microphone. I have the Electrovolt RE20, and also very good sound interface, the RME Babyface Pro, and they're both fantastic hardware. So it was like, it's very unlikely that it's those, right? So I was doing a test recording. First of all, what I did, obviously, I did a test recording on my PC to hear if it happens in other recording softwares like Audacity or recording software, and it didn't. So it was only happening in OBS. And then also, I went back and I put it on my smartphone via, my good Sony Bluetooth headset. It's just to verify the sound file, my speakers, right? Still same issue. And then I spent so much time. I switched to ASIO audio capture, to bypass the Windows WDM drivers and everything. I just did so much. Basically, it turned out the only issue that it happens is OBS merging two stereo, synchronized stereo tracks for a mic basically leads to inconsistencies between the waveforms of the copied channel, basically. The left and right channel was never in sync completely, and for whatever, the right channel always got the popping sound. And just like the way OBS seems to treat the audio files, seems to cause that issue. And that was really, really discouraging, and basically it led to me going for mono audio, but then mono audio, when you use 5.1 stream, it gets put to all 5 channels, which is really stupid. So you hear yourself from multiple directions, which is not the purpose, right? And it's basically impossible to get OBS to put it into a stereo channel without making it stereo again. So you can't really use mono with 5.1. And so I was, fuck it, stereo, everything's stereo anyway. So most people can't hear 5.1. YouTube doesn't play it back unless you're on a television. Twitch doesn't do it anyway. So I was like, and you know what, I'm just gonna go with mono being upmixed to stereo via OBS. In a normal way and not having two stereo tracks merged, basically. Yeah, and I hope that works now. I hope it's better. I also think the audio quality now is better because I think the per channel bitrate I think should be higher now. So yeah, it should be slightly better. But at the end of the day, I spent hours trying everything to fix it, like so many different things. And we're still using the ASIO direct capture, which by the way is not recommended for general use, by the way. The only reason why it works here, it can increase audio quality for sure, but it also can cause audio desync and crackling issues and stuff like that. And the reason is because it relies on the timings and the precision of your sound hardware. And because I have a Babyface Pro, which is a high-end audio solution, it is so well made that it's not an issue. But if you have a low end, you would have to check by your device, right? But if you have a low end system, it could basically be that you end up getting issues with that. So it's also, you have to use a plugin for that. It's not hard to do. It's really easy to do actually, but it might cause issues. So if you have like a less sophisticated, I guess, audio device, the Babyface Pro or the RE20 combo I have, you might, might not want to use your audio interface for that, so it might cause issues. Then the Windows drivers might be better. What am I doing? I'm still looking for the plane, but I don't think the plane exists. I think and if it does exist, I might have missed it. I'm really, really doing my best at finding it, but I don't think I know where it is, honestly. Man, the hint really seemed though like it was a real hint. Also, the plane was not in the room anymore, but it also was a long time ago. So, character would probably have retrieved the item. I like how Carnage has a video that's like, should you play Blueprints question mark, and you know that he's a huge fan of the game. Oh, by the way, Claire Obscura 33 is obviously not cancelled. I'm definitely want to play that game. And Distortion 2, still, like, I like that I helped push him together with his community towards playing the game just a few days ago. His last stream title was "This Game is Sick," so I'm really glad he enjoyed this, because he was like really on fence about turn-based games, and was like, "Bro, this game has real-time elements. You're gonna fucking love it." And I was really like, he didn't know what to play because he had issues with the save file from Oblivion, and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? It doesn't matter. Just play Expedition 33. It's going to be fun." And he was, "I don't know, blah blah blah." And then I was like, I explained to him how the combat system works. And I think a few moments later, he was convinced to try it out. And thank God, because it's going to be so fun to watch once I'm far enough to watch it. That's my problem, right? I don't want to be spoiled, so I'm not watching it anymore. I just watched the first 2 hours I already played, and yeah. Okay, but now we're continuing. I'm just running around, just checking for the plane, but nothing here. Yeah, definitely a lot of audio troubleshooting. Also, just a bit of the fan curve of my PC, because I think the CPU fan was a bit too aggressive for me. And yeah, a bunch of stuff basically. But at the end of the day, we're done now. And also, Janine played this game. She really liked it. So I like that too. Do we want to go for the schoolhouse run? You know what? That is not a bad idea, honestly. I think I'm gonna enjoy that. Oh, does the schoolhouse always have the broken lever? Wait, does the schoolhouse have the broken lever? We have to bookmark that for sure. Schoolhouse, starting room, broken lever always? Question mark? Because that would make the room very, very powerful, because that means the greenhouse is really good. We have the keys to the secret garden, so it doesn't really matter. Closing address. And also, there are a lot of dates in the game, and if ever the goal of the game would be to, if you need the dates to construct the order of happenings on the board later, we would just go back and note every date in the game. So don't worry about that. I'm definitely aware that the dates might be very relevant to progressing later. So at the moment, I'm still focusing on getting a few times to the antechamber, because I think there's still a lot of progress to be made that way. Also with discovering more rooms and, just like small stuff. But yeah, obviously the meta progression here is going to be quite nice. It's one of my favorite games of all time, for sure. Nothing's going to change that. Even if I stop playing now, or it becomes a bit worse or whatever, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. I had so much fun so far, and even up to this point, you could just stop playing and it would have been a completely fun and amazing experience. Also, this is one of the few rooms that has planar reflections. I assume they are planar. I don't think they're ray traced. And the reason why they're planar and not screen space is because you obviously can see out of screen space. But for this type of surface, I think planar reflections are way more common than ray tracing. So, yeah, as far as I know, the game has no ray tracing. But also, I do wonder the reflectivity here would add any hints we haven't seen. But I don't think so. I don't think that... Because the game doesn't have graphic settings, which usually hints that a lot of effects can be essential for gameplay if they wanted to, because everyone has them. But yeah. Okay, and you can also see, right, they're not, like, maybe they're just pre-baked, honestly, I don't even know. But because they do reflect the images correctly, but the doors are kind of not there, so no idea. Okay, the bookshop is obviously very interesting. I'm gonna go with the den. Our goal is to create a house, with a schoolhouse this time. So we're gonna try to get a lot of classrooms, but obviously we're not gonna jeopardize integrity of our structure early on. That is a huge mistake here. Doesn't add any new rooms here, so I will go with the breaker box quite early, which will give us access to yeah, by the way, I'm gonna try to go left first because I do want to go for the secret garden if possible. Okay, let's turn the system off, gymnasium off, darkroom. I wish you could swap this one early, but you can't. Okay, very nice. Looks like a good starting position here. I don't think this room ever had items, but what do I know? Yeah, we still haven't solved the safes, man. Yeah, there's so many of them. Den or corridor? I think we're gonna really keep to the lower ranks if possible, as long as possible. Office doesn't help us at all. Could go for the dead end here if we wanted to. Could go for the commissary and buy an item. We have a lot of money, so potentially interesting. Also, we want to buy those additional books. And I still don't know if the patch refers to this thing being patched at a later date, like in the real world or in the game. Yeah, I wonder. The set of gems is really good. The sledgehammer is also nice. Running shoes is very good. So I'll just buy everything. That should set us up nicely here for an early advancement. Definitely the spare bedroom, but we're not gonna go in. I mean, there's something inside though. We don't want to forget it, so we're just gonna take it now. Okay, and just checking what this is. Okay, library, why not, honestly? We don't have money now, so pantry also interesting. But yeah, library definitely seems quite interesting. Now, obviously, I am considering going backwards, but I'll see what we draft here before we go backwards. What book do we have now? The Curse of the Black Bridge. And nobody else borrowed this ever. The Curse of the Black Bridge by Redford Ewing. This book was graciously gifted by Simon P. Jones. That's us. Forward. The legend of Black Bridge is one that's well known to the people of the Grand Realm. For versions of this tale have been passed down from generation to generation. With each new telling, the story has changed, becoming over the years more colorful, more verbose, and as one might expect, increasingly horrifying. However, with so many renditions and unique personal touches, the task of confining and binding this tale to the next seemed a bit ambitious and impossible challenge. Over the course of my research, I have heard dozens of variations of the legend, and while the details would often change, I was surprised how much of the story's heart remained the same. Yet, the more I listened, the clearer it became that there could never be a definitive version of this tale, capable of capturing all the wonder and myth of Blackbridge. In the end, I chose to write down what felt the most authentic, the story my grandmother told me as a boy long ago. Part 1. The Berry Picker from Oris. Many years ago, before peace had become a familiar word, there lived a group of rogues so wayward that their locals deemed it appropriate to call their number the Unholy Hounds. They were feral outlaws composed of society's worst in a time when society was at its worst. And for each crime that fearful travelers credited to the group, a dozen more lay unclaimed, each worse than the last. For the gentry, however, who often value their coffers more than their companions, no crime could measure more wicked than the group's primary enterprise, high-road robbery. One such member of the so-called band of rogues was a boy of 13 years, Jesper, who had not been lucky in life, having lost 2 brothers to war and parents to famine. In the years of hunger that followed, Jesper lived in a gutter behind a churchyard, relying on the nourishment of scurrying bugs and weeds harvested from the cracks of the alleyway to sustain his pitiful existence. It is not surprising that a child aiming to escape such hardships would take an easy road out. An easy and well-traveled road, paved with temptations leading out of the city into the gentry lands, where loose purse strings entwine with the strands of salvation and glisten equally with the hope of opportunity. It was this road that eventually led Jester to the end of his youth, a hidden cave at the bottom of Black Ridge Canyon. It was here that he met his surrogate family and saviors, the notorious gang of godless outlaws known as the Unholy Hounds. Despite the hardened circumstances that had led him to this vocation of banditry, Jesper was surprisingly tender-hearted, and was often teased by the group for being too kind for such an ignoble life. For this reason, Jesper was assigned the innocent role of berry picker. It was not just innocence that set berry picking apart from the gang's more wicked undertakings, for it was the only duty performed without the safety of the night's concealment. Jesper, no stranger to solitude, did not protest that he alone worked while the others slept soundly, tucked away in the cave at the bottom of Black Ridge Canyon. On one such occasion, Jesper decided to get an early start. He left the cave, berry basket in hand, and set out into the woods before the morning sun had even brushed against the tallest treetops. It was colder in the mornings, but the headway dawn afforded meant Jesper could reach the furthermost berry patches without worrying of being chastised for tarrying upon his return. Sorry, it's too much. It took over 3 hours on foot to reach his destination. Along the way, Jesper had passed many familiar bush, all priorly pillaged and so bereft of berries that one would have to dedicate several moments in earnest examination before finding a single one. Jesper was patient, but even patient has its limits. He was confident that even accounting for the time lost to his long stretch of travel, his efforts would be well worth the pains. Surveying the patches in this new grove surprised even Jester. The red dots suspended among the leaves seemed as numerous as stars in the skies. Upon seeing such a bounteous sight, he clutched his berry basket tightly and nearly toppled over out of joy. Once he had regained his senses, Jesper quickly made a decision. He would not reveal the location of this newfound treasure. Instead, he would earn the respect of his confederates who, upon seeing his yield, might attribute the success to hard work. Smiling at his plan, Jesper set off to fill his basket and was making steady strides in this task when the sound of thundering hooves interrupted him. A carriage is approaching. The thought of it made Jesper freeze. Had he been so enchanted by his discovery that he had neglected to observe his surroundings? How could a roadway be so close? He ducked down and crept towards the impeding sound, hiding behind one of the larger bushes nearby. It was only a moment before the sound source revealed itself. Within 50 paces of where Jesper hid, an elegant carriage with gold-trimmed cane came soaring around a corner of trees, led by 2 beautiful white horses and conveyed by a stern-looking driver seated atop the vehicle, flaunting the most sophisticated Jesper had ever seen. Jesper had ever seen. It was not just any carriage, it was a royal carriage. Even without ever having witnessed such a sight before, Jesper was certain. The sight had so transfixed Jesper that he stood awestruck, unable to tear away as the carriage approached. The little concealment the bush provided was soon proven unequal to the driver's lofty perch, and upon spotting the boy, he pulled the reins with such effect the noble steed slid to a sudden halt with precise control. "You boy, get out from behind that bush," he shouted with rigidity that betrayed a modest amount of fear. "You startled me half to death coming round the bend of my own drive, and me seeing such an unfamiliar face in a place where there ought to be not to be any face." Jesper quickly contemplated running. The man was so much older, and his dress was suitable for courtly behavior, not dashing through the bramble and mud. I was pecking berries." Jesper raised the half-filled basket up to allow the driver to see the proof of his words. The demeanor of the man suddenly changed. It was a change that Jesper was familiar with. He had many times seen the same stern expression on the most fiendish bandits melt away when presented with a berry basket. Any suspicion that the driver might have had instantly evaporated. But even the notion of a member of the unholy hounds picking berries seemed farcical. The softened expression even made allowances for a smile. Berries, huh? Say, you couldn't have picked a better spot for them, could you? I used to pick berries here as a boy. Jasper took his cue to finally step forward out of from behind the bush, proudly brandishing his basket. I know, and what luck I found them. I have only just begun picking, and look how many I have. It would have taken me fourfold the time back home to produce this number. The driver bent down from a closer look. And where is your home, boy? It must be quite far. Jasper replied with a scripted response. A little south through Tanner Fork, just past the burnt woods. My god, that is far. You couldn't have come all that way only this morning. Oh, I can already see. He's gonna take him back home and they're gonna fucking rob him or something. It was true, Tanner Fork. Tanner Fork was in the exact opposite direction that Jasper has traveled. And while that response would seem perfectly reasonable in a location closer to Black Witch Canyon, you could see why it might seem less believable here. So I traveled much farther for much less profit. I dare say there is no distance yet made by man that would not be worth undertaking for a price such as these. Surely you have tasted them for yourself. Jasper felt happier with this response, as it seemed to amplify the man's smile. In my youth, often, but perhaps I took it for granted because I never had to travel very far, and even then my father would always drive us here in our carriage. So I'm ashamed I never had to walk such a stretch to earn an equal reward. It was Jasper's time to smile. Then, let my efforts reward us both today. He raised the basket even higher. A taste in memory of your youth, sir. The driver chuckled and removed one glove, bending over the seat to reach down to the basket. And at the moment his fingers touched the first berry, the dagger in turn met his throat. Cutting through a superficial layer of skin and drawing blood, Jasper caught the man's startled eye. And for that taste I will have your purse, sir, in memory of my youth. The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he had ever been before. Whether unable to or incapable of speaking, he did not respond to the boy. Perhaps he did not think his jaw could afford to be engaged at this particular time. Jasper let the basket drop, bringing this other hand to probe the man's pocket. But why would you compromise your berry spot for a little bit of money? Are you stupid? Do not mistake me, sir. I will not kill you if you give me no cause. Though I will admit, the thought of taking your carriage and leaving you the indignity of walking appeals me. Unable to find a purse in the man's coat, Jasper pivoted to search the seat under him. Why have you no purse upon you, a person? The driver slowly raised his hand cautiously, pointing towards the carriage door behind him. Jasper lowered the knife edge a small degree to allow the man to speak, which he did in turn softly. There's a lockbox in the carriage. But come down then and grant me the courtesy of sparing your life and binding your hands. A concession, I assure you, of my tender heart, for it would be much easier to slit your throat. The man started to comply, slowly lowering himself the driver's seat of the carriage. Once down, Jasper guided him away from the carriage to a nearby tree, where he instructed him to get on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Excusing his inexperience, the man indulged Jasper while he figured out how to adequately bind him. The smiling kindness of Jasper had seen on this man's face know nothing more than a distant memory. In their place, cold, dark eyes displaying no emotion. I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you're showing me? Jasper stopped, surprised by the question, but ignored it. Secured the final bindings, and then hastily returned to the carriage. With one hand on the door's handle, he turned back to the man. If there is no lockbox, there will be no clemency. Inside the carriage was surprisingly dusty and unswept, a stark contrast to the elegant and polished golden facade of the exterior. It had apparently been many years since a passenger had enjoyed passage in this vehicle. This all but confirmed what Jasper had suspected. The driver of this carriage was not a liveried servant in the employ of some greater master. Any curiosity that this observation might have further produced was quickly abandoned by seeing what rested under the carriage backseat, a large wooden lockbox. Despite its hefty appearance, the box was surprisingly easy to handle. Within a few minutes, Jasper had dislodged it from its hold and carried it out into the sunlight. Inspecting the box carefully, two observations were made. Totemic symbols, found carved on all four sides of the box, hinted that the box was very old and likely not created by Orindian hands. It reminded him of an artifact from the old world that was presumably crafted in one of the ancient realms. Secondly, the box was secured by a rusted yet robust padlock and would not open easily without a key. Jasper looked over to see the driver quietly observing from his indentured position. Do you perhaps have the key you can provide me to open this box? Without emotion, the driver replied, there is no key to that box. Jasper stood up, easy enough then. He headed over to a nearby rock of sizable dimensions and lifted the stone up, carrying it back to the box. If there was ever a time when that lock had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. With one hit, the stone had completely shattered the rusted lock. He bent back down and opened the lid. Inside was an effigy, a crude figure chiseled from stone. Without too much deliberation, Jasper bent down and picked it up, somewhat surprised by how heavy it seemed, given how light the box had felt. Having expected to find something more akin to gold or gems, he looked questioningly to the man, hoping to find an explanation. The driver's smile had once again returned. You're cursed, boy, for deadly is the stone. You have opened that which should never have been opened, and you are cursed. Jasper carried the effigy over to the man and shoved it in front of his face. What is this? That's one. Feeling his disappointment rising to anger, Jasper tightened his grip on the effigy. One what, you mumbling agenter? And in God's name, why have you no purse upon your person? The man did not seem intimidated. 1 pace. He paused for effect. 12 more and you will be dead. He only had a second to flinch before the effigy struck him in the head and put an end to his cryptic ramblings. If there was ever a time when the old man had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. Jasper looked down at the sculpted stone figure now splattered red. Was it cursed? Was he cursed? He had, of course, heard stories of curses and never doubted their validity in the past. But now that he was standing face to face with the possibility of being cursed, his mind pleaded with him to be skeptical. And if he was cursed, what difference would the knowledge make? A dozen more paces would not be enough to find another living soul. To say nothing of the chances of procuring a remedy. If he did not move from where he now stood, he could live maybe another 3 or 4 days, maybe more given the abundance of nearby berries. A plan that, if we ignore its obvious faults, might provide additional opportunities for help to come along. But what good would that do? We discovered here, beside a body, stolen goods in hand, bloated from berries, and raving about a curse that very well might not be real. No, it would most certainly be better to face one's fate now, take a dozen paces and see if life goes on. But Jasper found his legs unable to make that first step. His mind was unable to convince his limb to waste away on 12 of his life in a single motion. Feeling the desperation sink in, he hopelessly looked about him for a solution. And if, by some stroke of luck, the gods had heard his plea, a miracle materialized before him, as he found himself suddenly at the end of a fairy tale. 2 white horses and a carriage of golden trim were beside him. The answer to his immediate prayers is just stay in the fucking carriage and never walk again. Oh, is this the story about how the boy is going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life because he thinks he's cursed if he walks? That would be so stupid. Yeah. He laughed at his fortune and calculated the short number of paces back to the road. 4. Maybe only 3 if he jumped. He made a quick survey to see if there was anything he wished to grab before taking the plunge. He thought about removing the driver's fancy coat, as that appeared to be of some value, but the additional risk of undertaking such a task too great to chance. And so, after a profound breath, he took his second, third, and fourth step through, though they were quite large. Seated now behind the horse, he reached for the reins and suddenly realized that he was still gripping the effigy. If the curse was real, then it would most certainly be better to left here. If, on the other hand, the story was fictitious, there might be some appraisal that could be made of the figure. It was, after all, found within a lockbox whose typical functions of secures objects of value. Having witnessed firsthand the horrors of destitution, Jasper found his mind equally reluctant to allow his hand let go. If it is cursed, I die. If not today, then tomorrow. And if I die, what care have I? And with that statement said out loud to the horse seemingly, Jasper took up the reins with confidence. Part 2, oh my god. Part 2, Below the Black Bridge. Oh my voice is going to be fucked after this. Miller awoke to some light nudging from a familiar foot. Only one person would have the cheek to awaken her in such an ill-mannered fashion. Shaking the sleep from her eyes, she glared up at him in the darkness, but did not say a word. He nudged her again, teasingly, then stepped back into the dim. After taking a moment for her eyes to adjust to the darkness of the cave, Miller remembered. She was on the third watch today, quietly collecting her things and wits. Miller turned as she left, waving to her young friend, who was more than likely already asleep. She crept through the cavern's main passage, careful to not wake the sleeping bandits around her. Like a hero in a book, she often mused. Quietly, she grabbed a bow from the haphazardly foreign pile of weapons, shaking the accompanying quiver in the darkness to assess how many arrows it held. She then walked towards the sun-drenched mouth of the cavern, ready to start her shift. Above her, in one of the few trees found in the canyon, Miller could see that Ravia was already posted. She waved and Ravia waved back. Calling out to each other was strictly forbidden. Anything louder than a gesture in the canyon was forbidden. When Miller reached the tree, Ravia lowered a braided rope and pointed to the ground behind her. Miller turned, following the finger, and saw a pail of water resting beside a nearby log. She turned back to Ravia, nodded, and secured the pail to the rope. The pail went up first, and in turn Miller followed. Ravia reached across to grab the water. Miller leaned back to give her space. There was not much room for maneuvering in this tree post, a necessary concession for the concealment the outpost demanded. Ravia tilted the pail up to her mouth dramatically, illustrating how thirsty she had been. Miller laughed silently as water poured out, splashing onto Ravia's face. It was a bit too daring and noisy of a joke, and had the others been around, they would have certainly been scolded for the unwarranted sound. But Miller appreciated the efforts. Ravia took to verbalize the signs of the morning. They had been on the third watch together for over a month, and during that speechless time, their friendship had grown into something special. Affection was unsurprisingly scarce among the unholy hounds. She had felt camaraderie before, but intimacy never. From their elevated vantage, the girls could see both the concealed entrance of the cavern, as well as a clear view of the bridge that spanned across the canyon. Black Bridge was a link between the Gentry lands and the northern mountains, the overpass that connected Oris and Reddington. To the city-faring travelers of the realm, the bridge was an unavoidable crossing. In the day, the task was to ensure that travelers passed by without stopping. At night, the task was to ensure that they do. Like most of the band, Miller preferred the night. The biting glare of the sun might be tolerable to farmhands and bricklayers, but to a cavern-housed bandit, it was a source of constant annoyance. In the day, there was no shroud to conceal her expressions, nor to hide her thoughts. She felt exposed. Ravia touched her elbow and pointed up. Miller, striving to suppress a budding smile, subtly shook her head in response. There were many signs that the unholy hounds used in lieu of words, but the two of them had developed an extended vocabulary. Gestures quietly forged into the shared solitude of their month among the branches. Towards as Ravia shifted, placing her palms flat on the floorboards beneath them. Miller knew that she was trying to say what she was trying to say, but shook her head a second time. It was often more fun to pretend not to understand. Ravia rolled her eyes and turned away, looking back to the canyon. Squinting through the leaves, the two girls held still, watching and listening. It was not long until Miller too heard the sounds of approach. Ravia held up two bent fingers, and a few moments later, two men emerged from the bridge's southern end. They were dressed in a familiar uniform, long gray coats with black facings, white waistcoats, and black tricorn hats. They belonged to the local patrol, the Black Guard. Although not an everyday occurrence, their presence at the Black Bridge wasn't an unusual sight. It typically indicated an important traveler's impeding passage across the bridge, information that the girls would promptly relay to their leaders as soon as the coast was clear. But this report, while exciting, was rarely acted upon. In Miller's 5 years in the Unholy Hounds, she had never once seen a carriage taken in open daylight when the Black Guard was nearby. The men had nearly reached the bridge's north end when Miller heard the horses, faintly at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. Ravia's eyes met Miller's, the same concern mirrored in each other's expression. This did not sound like the typical carriage, cautiously approaching the bridge to cross. Instead of the unfamiliar crunch of the highroad's gravel, they heard the harsh clattering of hoofbeats against stone. Both girls quickly redirected their attention downwards, looking through the foliage. The sounds were not coming from the high road, but from the canyon itself. The horses were coming from below the bridge. In an instant, Miller had knocked an arrow and drawn her bow. Go. Ravia was gone before the whisper had even left Miller's mouth. The young scout was already sliding down the bank below, racing towards the cave. There was no road that ran below the canyon. There was no reason for numerous horses to be approaching their cave. There was only one reasonable conclusion, and both girls had reached it instantly. The base had been compromised. This was a blackguard attack. The moment the horses came into view, Miller let loose her first arrow. She was surprised to see a carriage. It expected cavalry. Before she even finished processing that thought, the second arrow was in the air. Without a trail, it would be unthinkable for a carriage to traverse such a rough terrain. Yet she watched as the wheels jolted over the rocky riverbed. A third arrow was now in flight, and there would be no need for a fourth. The driver's... Oh, so she killed the one with the carriage now. The boy from before. The driver slumped over just moments before the vehicle dipped into a small ditch, slamming into an embankment. And funnily enough, this is going to alert the blackguard to their position now. It's so funny. I think. Slamming into an embankment. The force of his sudden halt immediately shattered the front two wheels and captured the driver catapulted the driver from his seat. Utterly confused now, Miller quickly glanced over her shoulder to see if any horses were also approaching from her rear. Down in the canyon, the entire horde of the unholy hounds came spitting forth from the earth as if hell itself had suddenly sprung open. The group seemed even more bewildered than Miller, half asleep and tripping over one another in a desperate attempt to engage an unseen enemy in combat. Miller could see Ravia among their number, the only one looking up at her. Her expression was chilling. There would be no need for a silent gesture to convey what they both now realized. They had made a mistake. The gang's chieftain, Geoffrey Heartslasher, led the others cautiously approaching the crash carriage like a suspicious fox when near a baited trap. There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in a customary silence. A dozen or so paces in front of the wreckage lay the far-flung driver, an arrow protruding from his broken body, and beside him a blood-stained effigy carved from stone. Miller was inconsolable. Jasper had always been her favorite. He had always shadowed her in the night, clinging to the hems of her every move, the way a child tails behind an older sibling. Tender-hearted, she had always called him. I mean, he definitely was not tender-hearted. He was a cold-hearted killer. She had always called him, though deep down she had known that it wasn't quite true. His appearance of a gentlest concealed a raw, resilient durability that emerged in the most perilous of situations. He had been a flower among the nettles of this cave, but he still had thorns, honed by a grim past and 100 hands of misfortune. They buried him in the darkness in the back of the larger cavern rooms. But what about the guards on the bridge? Shouldn't they have caught wind of this? He was interred with a berry basket and a silk handkerchief that he had treasured. The mysterious effigy they had found beside him served as a distinguished gravestone, a marker that stood out as somewhat special among the rows of similar swords making neighboring plots. No one spoke, not even in whispers. There was nothing to say. Here we can see the logo. The logo here. In the darkness in the back of one of the larger cavern rooms. Okay. Okay, so there are neighboring plots, but there's also a symbol here. Okay, interesting. Miller awoke the next day to a thunderous shaking and rattling of the earth, a far cry from the playful nudging of the previous day. She strained to adjust her eyes, but the choking sting of stirred-up dust caused her to flinch. Panic was also in the air. The sounds of scurried footsteps and clattering feet filled with the space around her, but even in alarm, the silence was louder. What was it that sounded so strange? Miller closed her eyes tight and used her feet to guide her along the passage. The whispers around her were getting louder, and intense voices could be heard ahead, louder speech than she ever had spoken in the canyon. A growing dread grew as Miller approached the mouth of the cave, her eyes now open wide despite the dust. Shouldn't it be day? Miller felt a hand in the darkness pulling at her. It was Ravia. The two embraced, and Miller did not need to see her to understand. Ravia placed two bent fingers against Miller's cheek, and with that touch against her face, Miller felt the same sinking feeling from the previous day. Two bent fingers confirmed that Miller had suspected. The girls had forgotten to relay one critical piece of information to the others. Obviously that the blackguard was on the bridge and they heard them. An hour or so later, the screams began. Blood-curdling cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Fortress Lee of the Blackguard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to the collapsed entrance of the cave. Ah, he grinned. Now they speak. Yeah. Okay. Wait, what? Okay, wait, the end here? Yeah, I get the story, but an hour or so later, the screams began, by cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Frederick Lee of the Blackguard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to... Okay, so they just sealed the entrance with them inside. And they didn't know there was another exit. Okay, why did you waste my fucking... nice story, bro, but... Jesus fucking Christ. And it's all because of the effigy. No, I'm just kidding, but yeah, a nice story, but is there any meaning to this? Beyond fucking my voice? Okay, cool story. I mean, it was an enjoyable story, but I don't know what it has to do with the game specifically. I mean, it was set in a world, I guess. Yeah, related to the game, but also the time is probably now really advanced, so... Not quite sure what's going on here. Yeah, nice classroom for sure. Shit, there was the bookshop, but we didn't have money. But we still didn't have the chapel either, so... Let's go back to the den here. Yeah, that was quite a story. Also I would not call it anti-immersion, but... It was so long that my brain is now in book reading mode and not in gaming mode anymore, which is probably not what you want when you play a game. But yeah, and I don't know what information we could gain from that, so quite mysterious. Obviously items. Hello, my friend. The sleeping mask. We should really try to finish the row 4 though. But every time I try, I realize, oh no, this is so unlucky. This is immensely unlucky. That sucks. But whatever. Yeah, I mean, you can't beat unlucky, I guess. Because we got this one. I mean, did we? Yeah, we chose this one, but at the same time, it only led here. So this was not an option. So I think all our decisions were okay. It's just like mega unlucky. Yeah, it is just mega unlucky. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else I can say about that. Puffer. Okay, we got the magnifying glass, which maybe would have helped with the story. I mean, you know what, we spent so much fucking time reading it, so why not? Why not have a look at the pictures? But I don't think those pictures add value. Nah. I mean, the text for sure doesn't hold any information, I think. If anything, the gravestones are relevant, but... It is drawn in a very abstract and low-res fashion, which makes me think that it's not very relevant. Yeah, I would say this is probably not relevant based on the information we have here. Yeah, they forgot to mention these two guards, obviously. That's exactly what I expected to happen, by the way. So I would not have made that mistake. Yeah, you could have made the story even dumber by just like keeping him alive in a wheelchair his entire life, being afraid to move. But yeah, I don't think there's anything but the hint that there might be a grave with this symbol down here. But yeah, no idea, honestly. There is any hint here. Okay, grade 1, there we are. We know grade 1. Grade 1 we love. Now grade 1, there's, I think, nothing else we could do here. I hope you know your colors before you're in grade 1, though, because that means you would have very bad parents if you don't know them ahead of time. But yes, I sure hope most children don't have to learn the colors in school. Quite unfortunate. Okay, let's get out of here. We need a fork. We can't. We can redraw 3 times here, so yeah, this is way better. We can't afford the risk of having a single room anymore. Okay, this gives us a lot of money, and I do wonder if the money found in the church is my girlfriend thought about that. She was like, maybe you have to, you get the money back you spend when you come back into the chapel the next day. I don't know, but I mean the next time you draft it, basically. Sure, the dark room. I mean, we have, right? We have to, and also you can just like toggle it on and off if you wanted to by going back to the entrance, which does cost a lot of steps, which is not great. Losing half our steps is awful. But also it is a perfect location for this. But I think we're gonna try it this way, maybe. Yeah, but we should we go back now? I think so. I think so. No, let's go back when we need the dark. But it also could have good items at the same time. But it is quite a lot of steps though. But is there a reason to go back? Otherwise, I don't think so. So let's just do it now so we don't waste too many steps. We know how many steps we have, basically. Did I ever check the book in the library with the lens? I don't think so. Yeah, you can't preemptively disable the room, but you can disable it before going in, saving yourself 2 steps, as far as we tested at least. So this should prevent the power outage theoretically. Oh yeah, it's already getting really late. I do wonder if we should go outside later though. Yeah, let's go and quickly check the additional. I mean, there's no way there's just something that's going to magically appear. By the way, the control of the game works fine. It even has some sort of aim assist for the mouse cursor, so you even have a bit more assistance than the PC version where you have to really look at everything in detail. I mean, there's nothing here I would look at. I'm just like making sure, right, that this is roughly what you would expect it to be. Is there anything unusual? Because we do know what it looks like. It's 130. Don't see any hints here. Yeah, there could be, right? That time is relevant. Yeah, let's look at this one. Yeah, this one for sure might have information. Go check. quite interesting. MTH. What is this weird? No idea. Did random garbling. My first claim tickets. I don't know if they're like randomized or not. Not made a lot of contraption. Yeah, so we're still missing a few here, probably. Yeah, I mean, we don't do it on purpose, I guess, but... Highest grade 2. Yeah, right, this is where we're going right now. Yeah, why not build the schoolhouse, to be honest? I mean, it might already be too late, because we don't have that many opportunities left, but... Are you rank 4? No. It's kind of funny, always by rank 4, my brain is like completely shutting off and I forget to check things. Yeah, this is great too. We should definitely have a look at this one. We never have been here. Mathematics worksheets direction, find each sum without using science. Without using science. Oh, is this like the same as the parlor thing? So it would be like 7, 13, 4. Is that how it works? I think so. Yeah, this should be easy. The question is, what do we do here? Do we have to... Oh, wait. Do we have to take the final exam at some point? Because we can't... I think we can't fill these in, as far as I know, at least. Yeah, so I think it's the same logic as the other one. So this one, 7, 13, 4, 1, 4. Very good. 12, yes. Wrong. Correct. Correct. Wrong. Yeah, let's find the wrong ones. You are wrong, you are wrong. And you are correct. You are wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. 3 wrong. Yeah. Okay, so we understood this one. This one is not difficult, I think. Mathematics is starting to add up. Haha, funny. Okay, that, I mean, make it even more obvious for those who... Yeah, this, I mean, it's grade 2. Come on. Like, what did I expect? Honestly, the colors were harder because you have to know what the flag's colors are. Yeah, can you find the difference? No, because I don't know what you are. What are you? Yeah, what is this called? If we knew what this was called, this would solve so many problems, but I don't know what it's called. What are you called? I mean, it's quite easy. We know we have to remove one word from stage, so... If I take the word stage... and I remove word stack... Doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, maybe star is a flower. I don't know. Star? Or no, it's not necessarily a flower, plant or something. Yeah, what would you call a flower? Oh, did my Twitch stream crash? Oh, may rest in pepperonis. No, it just crash. I don't know why. This unknown error, really. Why is the Twitch stream dead? And why can't I restart it? Unknown error. Those are my favorite ones. Like I can't lie. The unknown errors, they really are peak. Yeah, it's just a plugin, so it's always a bit risky. The question is, do we continue on YouTube exclusively, or do you go back on Twitch? I think we're just gonna keep it on YouTube now, because I can't restart it and I don't want to end stream for this. So, yeah, unfortunate. Okay. The state planned education. I mean, I am curious though, how long did the stream survive for? Wow, it made it to 8 minutes? Really? The stream died after 8 minutes. Wait, but yeah, no idea why it died so fast. So should we restart it? I think we're just gonna restart it quickly. So yeah, sorry about that. I'm gonna restart it quickly, and I'll see you in 1 second on YouTube. Sorry about that.